Anime has given us some truly broken, awesome, and memorable weapons. It can take a mundane item like wire and give it to an assassin, but it can also take an already dangerous item like swords and take them to godlike levels. It can take a mundane item like wire and give it to an assassin, but it can also take an already dangerous weapon like a sword and then take that sword to godlike levels. Whether it's the swords used by the Seven Swordsmen of the Mist in Naruto, Murasame, Agame's sword from Agame ga Kill, Future Trunks' sword from Dragon Ball, Tenseiga from Inuyasha, Yoro, Mihawk's sword from One Piece, or Zangetsu from Bleach. These weapons have become synonymous with their anime as well as their wielder, and Black Clover is no different, and in today's episode, we are going to explain all of Astas' swords in Black Clover. So as of the recording of this video, Asta has access to 4 swords: the Demon Slayer sword, the Demon Dweller sword, the Demon Destroyer sword, and the Demon Slasher sword. And I'm going to go over how he obtained each one and what their individual abilities are. But first, I need to answer the question, what makes them so powerful in the first place? And the answer to that is Liba's anti-magic. So, Asta and Liba have one big thing in common. Both of them were born without mana and thus can't use traditional magic. And we don't know why Liba couldn't use magic, but there will probably be an explanation if the series actually does continue. But since Liba couldn't use magic, he was able to come to Earth where he met Asta's mother, Rikta, who sort of had a curse where she would essentially steal all the mana from whoever she was near, which is what ended up happening to Asta while she was pregnant with him. Thus, Asta was born without magic as well. But while Liba was inside of the 5-leaf Clover Grimoire, he learned how to wield anti-magic, a force which cancels out all magic, and he could only use anti-magic because he didn't have any magic himself. Now, whether this is due to him being exposed to Licta's magic / curse, however you want to look at it, or just the ability he could already use, just didn't know, it is never really explained throughout the series. But the important thing here is that he learned how to use anti-magic. So, like I already went over in my Grimoire Explained video, since Liba uses anti-magic, he couldn't change the 5-leaf Grimoire and give it his own spells. He could only apply anti-magic to its existing spells, and in this case, that would be Lick's sword magic. This would essentially infuse Lick's swords with anti-magic, turning all of their former abilities into anti-magic abilities, and thus the anti-magic swords were created. But he was trapped in the Grimoire, so all he had to do now was wait until the 5-leaf Grimoire chose a new wielder. Then he could take over their bodies and use the swords. And then along came Asta, and he was chosen by the 5-leaf Grimoire. And since Asta had no magic, he could actually use the anti-magic and the swords without suffering the drawback of his own mana being cancelled out by the anti-magic. And this sets the stage for the two of them to be the most powerful team, and the swords to be the most powerful weapons in all of the Black Clover universe. So, all of the swords have certain things in common, and we can just go over all of these really quick just to get them out of the way. All of Asta's swords are black with dirt or rust-colored markings, and this is a sign of them being infused with anti-magic. All of the swords are capable of cutting through any magic, however, with only one exception, they cannot cut through anything that is not magic. Instead of slicing it, they will just act like a blunt sword and only cause blunt force trauma to the target. However, if the flat of the swords are used, instead of the blade, it will reflect the spell back at the person or whoever Asta actually wants to hit it towards. And the point of the swords will still stab through non-magical things, so it can be kind of used like a spear point. All of that out of the way, now we're actually going to get into Asta's first sword. So the first of Asta's swords he has access to is the Demon Slayer sword. This was the only one of Lick's swords that was left in the Grimoire, taking the form of a huge greatsword. Now this sword can remove mental enchantments by tapping the crossguard on the victim's forehead, and Asta can extend the anti-magic from the edges of the sword, expanding the width and length of the sword, and the sword in this state, the blade is drawn to magic, making it harder to dodge. This technique is called the Anti-Magic Demon Slayer Sword Black Divider. Asta can also manipulate the anti-magic in the sword to fly through the air, controlling the sword remotely and also flying on the sword. So the next of Lick's swords Asta manages to find was the Demon Dweller sword. And this sword basically takes the shape of an emblazoned cavalry sword. And Asta found this sword while battling with the Diamond Kingdom in a dungeon. So this sword is able to absorb spells and then store the magic that it absorbs and then send it flying back in kind of a slash attack. But if there is no spells being sent at the sword, Asta can actually apply anti-magic to the weapon and send the anti-magic slashes out of the sword. This sword also connects Asta to his allies over long distances and can send power and messages to them. This absorption ability will also happen passively and can be used to immobilize opponents by impaling them with the sword. And last but not least, after Asta learns to wield Zetin, the sword can be used to send magic to allies instead of absorbing their own magic. So, the next sword Asta finds is the Demon Destroyer sword. So this sword has the most unique blade of all of them. It has a blade that looks like it has a clover symbol at the top of it. And Asta finds the Demon Destroyer sword in the central room of the Gravity Rock Zone floating dungeon, where it fell into his grimoire during a fight with Licht, who actually possibly just gave it to Asta subconsciously in order to aid him in defeating the reincarnation spell. And this sword has the ability Casualty Break, where it absorbs magic and removes the effects of any spells by severing the cause and effect relationship, and this technique was powerful enough to even reverse a reincarnation spell. This looks like tendrils of magic that grab on and pull the magic back into the blade. And then after Asta masters Zetin, he can use the sword to create a barrier to negate any magical attacks. And last but not least, Asta's final sword, the Demon Slasher sword. And this is actually the first sword to be added to the grimoire by Asta and Libe instead of just being one of Licht's original weapons. Originally belonging to Captain Yami Shikahiro, this is a standard katana and imbued with anti-magic. Asta adds the sword to the grimoire during a fight with the Devil Dante. Unlike the other three swords, this sword will cut anything not reverting to a blunt object. Asta can also apply anti-magic to the blade, increasing its length, as well as using it to send flying slashes of anti-magic. However, in his Unite form, the slashes will only do harm to the intended target and to no one else. And that's it. The one thing I want to bring up is that we don't know what would happen if the grimoire would have chosen Asta without him actually having anti-magic. Since he doesn't have magic, he might not be able to use it at all. And if he could, the swords would have just been regular swords. There wouldn't have been anything special about them. He would have just been able to pull swords out of the book. And he also couldn't use any of the powers granted to him by Licht from the swords because, like, Asta doesn't have any magic to use the swords with. But anyway, that is everything we know about Asta's swords, at least as of the time of recording this video. And in the comments down below, guys, please let me know which one of your swords is your favorite sword. Did I get anything wrong about the swords? And did I miss anything about the swords? And maybe let me know in the comments down below, how many times have I used the word sword in this video? Because God, does it feel like it's a lot. But anyway, guys, while you're down there roasting me in the comments, please remember to hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, turn on that notification bell so you never miss another video from me. I think I'm finally starting to find my flow here with this new content that I'm trying to create, but I will see you guys in the next video.